Hi, I'm Hann, and I've been a wilderness and ocean guide for the last 25 years here in British Columbia. 15 of those years I've been running multi-day paddleboarding trips, and I want to show you how to load this West Coast board up for your multi-day paddleboarding trip. So there's a couple of things you want to keep in mind when you're loading up your paddleboard for a multi-day trip. First of all, you want to think about trying to keep the heavier weight closer to your feet. You want to try and also keep that weight low on your paddleboard and try and keep it balanced. So think of those three things when you're going to load up your paddleboard. The system that I like to use generally is using 3 dry bags. And so I've got one dry bag that has my sleeping system in it. So that could be your tent, your sleeping bag, your thermarest, and your pillow. Something that I'm not going to get into, I'm going to put that on the tail of my board. I've got a second waterproof bag that has all of my clothes and maybe a few of the extras that you're going to have at camp, maybe a first aid kit, clothing bag here. And then my third bag, usually I've got my food in it for overnight. I've got my cooking system. I've got my bowl and mug, things of that sort of that kitchen bag that I've got. I'll also sometimes run with a smaller, like 5-liter, 10-liter bag, and I'll just put some of the essentials in it, like sunglasses, sunscreen, snacks of that, something like that. So I'd really like to show you how to load up this board. All right, so we've got our 3-bag system here, and we're going to load this West Coast board up. So this bag here has my sleeping system in it. Again, the tent, sleeping bag, thermarest, pillow. It's something that I don't need to access throughout the day. These West Coast boards and the bungee on them come shrink wrapped. So I actually cut the shrink wrap off. I like setting up my bungee by first taking it all off the board so that I don't have to work too hard in trying to stuff my bags underneath. So I take all the bungee off, and then keeping in mind that we want to try and keep the weight closer to our feet and low and balanced, I'm going to take this bag. I like running this bag north to south, they call it, or tip to tail. I find it positioned really well. Again, we've got a number of attachment points that you can use. On this end, I just used a bowline knot, and then I'm just going to string my bungee through it. So we can just run the bungee cord over. And I want to make sure I pick up that slack so it's nice and tight. What's nice as well is that sometimes these bags have little attachment points on them. So if your bag had that, you can run that through for extra security. And again, I love how many attachment points are on this West Coast board. That's why we did it, so I didn't have to think too much about where all these attachment points are. Then I'll just tie a quick release knot over on this side. We're set for the tail of the board. Next 2 bags, again, thinking about having our heavier weight closer to our feet. The most stable part of this board and where it's going to carry the weight the best is right in front of this handle. So this section of the West Coast board, right over Roy's logo, unfortunately, is where we're going to put most of our weight. So same idea. I'm going to take the bungee cord off. And then I'm first going to set the bags how I want to set them. Then I'm going to put the bungee cord on top of that. So this is my food bag, kitchen kit. So this actually has the heaviest weight in it. Sometimes you might be carrying a water bag. If you're on the ocean and water is limited, you might have a 10-liter, a 5-liter dromedary bag. That's going to go right in front here because water is very heavy. That'll sit here as well. So I've got my kitchen kit, my food, and then I've got my clothing bag and some of my safety essentials and extras, a little bit lighter. That's going to go up front. So I really like how that is set up here. And again, I can run my bungee system. The way this one's set up, I can probably run it from the last 2 D-rings here. All right, I'll go over. These D-rings are really easy to string, so no problem getting this high gauge bungee cord through here. And again, as you pull through, you want to make sure you pick up that tension, right? So we cinch that gear down really well, keep that tension. We've added these D-rings on the front of these side handles, really nice and easy again. One more here. Again, if I felt I needed more security and your bag has some loops and straps, you can run it through that. Tie down on this side.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so there you go. I really like how that's looking. Something else that I really like on the boards, sometimes people will pack the gear really tight so you don't have a lot of area for some footwear. I love leaving enough deck pad so that I can move my feet around. If I need to get into a hybrid stance or change my stance depending on what's happening with the water, I can do that. So I really like having that space there. It's great. The other nice thing too is if you're tired, want to take a break while you're out there, you can actually sit down on the board, rest up against this bag, and it's a really nice way to take a break, have a snack, maybe have some lunch. So I can just tell the way this board is set up now that it's going to paddle really well and it's going to be really efficient out on the water. We've loaded up this West Coast board. I really like how it's loaded. It looks balanced. It's nice and low, and I've got the heavier weight closer to where you're going to be standing. One of the things that I figured out from 15 years of multi-day paddleboarding trips and loading boards is what I call this V system, and I find it's really handy. So what I do is I bring an extra bungee. This board comes with 2 thick gauge bungees. It's probably going to do most of the trips that you have on the West Coast board, but if you're carrying just that extra bit of weight, you know, maybe a water bag, maybe a few extra things up front, this third bungee works really well, and I'll show you how this is set up. Again, I'll run a bowline knot off the top. And I love handles for attachment points. So we've got a lot of handles on this one. I run this through here, right? Don't ever forget that the handle is a great attachment point when you're doing multi-day expeditions. And up through the top bungee or D-ring. And so again, I tighten this up. So now I've got a really nice secure. Come back up to my D-ring and tie off again. So this, again, what I call the V system. I use the X system with the bungee that's provided. I run this V system, and now it's just like a pressure system. So if I've got a water bag that wants to sit under there, or a smaller dry bag, 5 or 10 liter, I can attach things off of here. It's a really nice pressure system. You can see actually really how well this stuff is strapped down. So if this board were to go, if you're to tip, this board rolls over, I can guarantee you that none of this stuff is going to come off. So I've got it, what I call West Coast ready. So I'd like to keep the stuff on my board pretty minimal. I don't like to have a lot of extra things. So we've got our 3 bags tied down here. And then the final thing I'll put on, and I always bring an extra 3-piece paddle with me, whether I'm paddling by myself on a multi-day trip or I'm with clients. You never know if that paddle's going to float away or if it's going to break. So I always bring that. And for me, it always sits at the back on here, and I strap it down out of the way. Still have lots of room for my feet, and we've got our extra paddle ready to go. All right, well, there you have. We've shown you how to load up this board for multi-day paddleboarding trips. If you really want to know exactly what I carry in these bags, then join us for one of our expeditions here on the British Columbia coastline.